Okay. Good.
The date is February 18th, 2016. The time is 6:33 PM. Rick Surrette,
Present.
Rob Collins,
Here.
Gary Chicalone,
Here.
Jim Freeman, Ed Comeau,
Present.
David Champy II,
Present.
Rich Sackler,
Here.
Dianne Smith.
Here.
Okay, so we have one regular member that's absent, Mr. Chairman.
Diane, will you sit for Jim?
Certainly.
Thank you. Public comments? Announcements and correspondence? We got mail. A New Hampshire Community Design Surrette 2-day workshop. If you have a downtown or other significant neighborhood in your town that you'd like to do something with, but not sure where to start, plan to attend. Doesn't say where. But if you want to go. This is, I have to pull it out. It's a survey for a lot on Reed Dam Road for Richard Galadaro. It's just a boundary line survey, of what's on the lot. And it was sent to us for our use as required per RSA 676-18-4.
What are we supposed to do with it?
Good question.
No, it's up at 67618.
Is there any request to do any changes to the property or anything? No?
It's just a survey.
What are we doing around there?
67618 is Register of Deeds. Item number 4 says, prior to recording any plat in the Registry of Deeds, the surveyor shall file, for information purposes only, a copy of the survey with the town planning board.
Okay.
So here we go.
Could look that up.
Do you have a file for plats, Judge?
Yes, we do have a file, and I will make a specific file for that property.
Okay, thank you.
Or it could be filed in the tax, with the tax card, if that makes sense, because we've got, for every lot, map and lot, we have a folder. Every, Jessica has a folder for every map and lot.
Is there a boundary survey of those folks?
There could be, some are.
It probably makes sense to do what you're saying, because if people come looking for things, that's where they're going. As opposed to the planning board filing cabinet.
They always come with the map and lot.
And why do they send it to us?
Because we're in charge of land use, so we probably should send it over there.
Is somebody familiar with that lot? And
I'm gonna butter, that's why I wanted to look at it.
is it look,
Yeah,
Right.
I don't.
anything fishy?
No, I don't think so.
I think that's gotta be, that's what we're here for, right? Is to,
Yeah.
if it's fishy, then we,
They had some trouble tying it in because it's a real old lot, right? So when you try to tie them in, but
It's just a lot, as is, for the building on
that's right.
it, and a holding tank.
They hired a surveyor, so we know what he had.
It might be on the market, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So you get a survey to make sure you know what you're buying, see if there's any.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Anyone know what they're at?
Excuse me, I haven't finished reading this, but there's words in here relative in this RSA regarding subdivision. Rob, did you look this over?
the letter cited specifically 67618,
4.
Roman numeral 4. which I read in its entirety, which basically just says that if they're gonna
Any
record,
plat.
if they're gonna record a plat, they gotta give us a copy.
Okay.
And that's all it says. It doesn't say what to do anything with it, doesn't, I mean,
Okay, all right, thank you.
Review of the minutes from January 21st, if everyone wouldn't mind taking some time to look them over. You got a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes of Thursday, January 21st, 2016, as written.
Second.
I'm not sure if this is significant, but on the second page, under a very top section, item B, number 3, this is in the discussion of the minutes of the January 7th meeting. And number 3, I have in my notes as a part of the discussion under new business. And I don't know if that's significant in any way. it wasn't until there was discussion about how to move forward on the inspections that, at least my notes indicated that the administrative assistant was asked to check who owned the property.
After the discussion of setting up an inspection?
Yeah, but that was under new business. Item B is just part of the review of the minutes,
Right.
and that hadn't been discussed. That was a new suggestion relative to, later on in the page, section 7A.
Mr.
Is
Chairman.
is
Yes.
this something typo there, Judge? or-
I believe that she is right. What I've done in the past is, and by instruction over the years, is to categorize the information so to make it more easily accessible for the planning board when they go over the minutes. So, you know, I mean, I can move it very easily, but that's the reason why it's there. It's just,
So it's there because it's in with the discussion of Long Meadow?
that's correct. It's relevant to that discussion. That's why it's right there.
I don't have a problem leaving it where it is. If anyone else would like to have it moved somewhere, just make a suggestion where it should go, and we'll figure it out. All in favor? Accepting the minutes? Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Same? The answer is accepted. Thanks, Diane. New business. SRPC representation. Ed, are you no longer going down to SRPC?
Due to my new responsibilities, it is very difficult to get to their meetings. They're usually on a Friday.
Yeah.
Occasionally, the TAC meetings are on Thursdays, 2 very bad days. As of now, and SRPC has not been able to determine that I've been reassigned. I was appointed in 2010 originally, and then I remember coming back to the board again because you received a letter, and I believe I was appointed again.
That was last year, I think, though.
Yeah, it was, but that's not recorded at SRPC.
Maybe we didn't tell them. Could be, you know.
Could be. So the gist of it is, we should have somebody there, either as an alternate or a permanent. We can have 2 people there. Since we don't pay dues, we only have 1 vote.
Right.
But I believe there is somebody in the room that is already well-versed in SRPC business, how it functions, how it operates, due to the person's past experience with Coast Bus. So she's familiar with DOT and how the transportation system works and how the federal highways works. She knows the people down at SRPC, and I'm saying she, because I'm talking about Dianne Smith. And I believe you had visited them recently?
Well, I went to a meeting at the end of their commissioners, their quarterly commissioners meeting, because it was a presentation that I thought would be important to learn about the upcoming legislative, proposed legislation. And I think I distributed that information to everybody. And I asked a simple question, because I had done a little bit of I'm sorry, should I just start talking?
Yeah, go ahead, we'll listen.
So I checked to see what the status was of various, it looked at the membership of the, what they had listed for commissioners. The commissioners, so there's the SRPC, turns out. They have a separate structure for the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is the legal entity, or the official entity, I should say, that controls the distribution, doesn't control it, but has an significant influence on the distribution of federal transportation dollars in our region. That's the MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization. After reviewing their bylaws for SRPC, the bylaws for the MPO, there's commonality in terms of the commissioners that are appointed by each community that's a member. are de facto members of the MPO Policy Committee. The glitch is, because we are a non-paying member community, our commissioner representatives, there are two, we're allotted two. They cannot vote at the SRPC level, but on the MPO side, they can vote, but there's only one vote. So sort of by default, one commissioner becomes an alternate. Whoever shows up gets to vote. There's only one vote on the policy committee. The TAC, the Technical
Advisory Committee.
Advisory Committee, or Transportation Advisory, excuse me. Is it technical or
It's
transportation?
Technical Advisory Committee.
Okay, Technical Advisory Committee, which deals with the nuts and bolts of the transportation funding. Curiously, is a separate appointment for 2 years. The commissioners are a 4-year appointment. And I have the documentation in the email thread that has transpired over the last 3 or 4 weeks. And I've CC'd Ed on all of this, just so he's aware. As Ed said, the only documentation that they have is the Board of Selectmen in December of 2010 appointing Ed as the representative to SRPC. There's also a document from 2012 appointing Ed as the appointee to the Technical Advisory Committee and Jim Freeman as the alternate for fiscal years 2013 and 2014. Yet the website indicates that it's Ed as the member on the TAC and you, Rick, as the alternate. They have no record of that. Even though it's on their website, they couldn't provide that documentation. So my suggestion to them was that perhaps this evening, one more item of protocol. The by law, by the statute, the RSA that directs the membership of a community on a regional planning commission, the planning board nominates individuals to represent the community. They have to be appointed by the Board of Selectmen. It's silent on the TAC, but as I can see in the past, it was the Board of Selectmen who were the appointing officials for the TAC representation. So that's the structure, and right now there are officially, notwithstanding any other documentation, officially no representation of Brookfield on SRPC, and the TAC membership is undocumented as well. So I thought this might be an opportunity to get the ball rolling to get that cleaned up, and Ed had expressed the concern about no representation because he couldn't attend meetings.
Does anyone have a suggestion how to sort this out?
There is no sorting out. If I'm reappointed, I could continue on. Dianne could be appointed, if she's willing, to go. We could then converse on what's happening in those meetings. And then when my schedule is freed up, when the session comes out, we can both go. And finally, I would have somebody to actually speak to during and after the meeting about what transpires in the meeting, so we can both convey that information better back to the town. So if at any time in the future, if I can't go, there'll always be somebody that could go. Vice versa, if she can't go and I'm not in session and I can go to the meeting, I could. It would be a good idea.
Are you willing to get involved?
Well, just to be perfectly clear about this, if someone else has a burning desire to represent the community, I would not be slighted in the least if they were appointed along with Ed.
I think you have the strongest interest in this room.
I don't know, Gary?
I don't have days free. It's simple as that.
The SRPC commissioners meet quarterly, and that's the meeting that I attended in January. The MPO policy board, at least according to their website, meets every third Friday from 9 to 11, and the TAC meets on the first Friday of the month. So that would be the time commitment. Those are monthly commitments as opposed to the quarterly commitments as non-voting commissioners to attend.
And what time is it?
I don't know, I didn't see what I did, or if I did see it, I didn't write down what time the TAC meetings are. I know it's in the morning from my previous experience.
It's been since 2010, 9 to 11.
In the morning for the TAC meetings, yeah.
Is anyone interested in being nominated as a representative for Brookfield to attend these meetings? Well,
If you can look at me, I'm gonna make a motion. I move that we nominate Ed Comeau and Dianne Smith as our representatives to SRPC and Technical Advisory Committee, and that we forward that nomination to the selectmen for their action.
well, no one said they were willing yet. Are you willing to do it?
Yes, I will.
I didn't ask if they were willing, I just nominated.
Just-
them.
I want to make sure this goes through.
Yes.
All right,
So I'd like
will
to
you,
second
will you
the discussion.
make a motion again, Rob, please?
George, did you get it?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, read it back.
I don't remember what it said.
Vice Chairman Rob Collins made a motion to nominate Ed Comeau and Dianne Smith to as representatives for Brookfield for the SRPC NPA Technical Advisory Committee.
Second.
And to forward that nomination to the selectmen for their action.
Further discussion?
Yes, I would like to say that Dianne Smith is an excellent candidate for this position. She will be able to understand, there'll be no learning curve, because when you first get to SRPC and you have no idea how that place functions and how the feds function and federal highways function, it's very difficult to fish through what's really happening. But I think Dianne will be able to, she'll fit right in there, and I think she's an excellent candidate.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? George, will you forward the nomination to the selectmen, please?
Yes.
The selectmen will act on that right away.
We meet Tuesday.
This Tuesday? Excellent. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Ed. Gravel pits. Everybody looked at 155E? RSA 155E. I went through it and I didn't see anything about inspection in the whole RSA. But I saw something about enforcement that would allow the regulator, which is the town, to enter the properties for inspection. Gary?
You have to get permission from the landowner. And generally, the landowner wants to be there. I've been inspected the ones in the past.
Yeah.
And that's a requirement. You're not really entitled to just walk out there and look.
Right. The
They were cooperative. We have only a couple in town that are active.
what came up was I was looking in the RSA for an inspection requirement, and I didn't find one. I've got no aversion to continue on the inspection, but some of the discussion was the state inspects them when they issue the permits every year. I don't know if that's true or not.
I don't know. I'm going back a number of years. We haven't done this in a long time. When
I was afraid it was redundant, something that was already
the
happening.
state doesn't do any inspecting at all.
You know that for a fact?
Yep. The planning board in this town always did the inspections. And I've never seen it in print that there's a requirement, but I do remember when Ann Martin was chairman, and before her, I think Frank Fraser was chairman, inspections were done. But then there was a big issue because the Albee pit was opened and part of it hadn't been reclaimed and it was supposed to be reclaimed. Very large pit. So there were issues then. There really aren't any issues now of substance because Long Meadow doesn't really use their pit too much. They do use it though.
Yeah.
So how necessary it is, I can't tell you that. Well, the planning board always did do it.
And it's in the, it's documented somewhere that we have to do it?
Honestly, Rick, we just did it for years. I don't know if there's any RSA that states the town has to do that. However, there are legal things that have to be complied with.
Right.
And I wouldn't know who would be in charge if not the local level, town itself, versus the state, because the state just doesn't do it. So if someone were to not be in compliance, no one would ever know, unless there was some kind of annual or biannual inspection. Or we don't have to inspect and they might go out of compliance or whatever. Personally, it's not that big of a deal.
Right, I don't think it's that big of a deal that we anticipated doing this or not, so I had George make an inspection form, but I'm all for making our government footprint a little smaller in this town and not require this if it's done by another agency or the state, or if it's something that is something that we're not going to gain benefit from. Probably.
Just a couple of things that caught my eye in, this is in RSA 155E, :10, enforcement, item number 3. To ascertain if there is compliance with this chapter, a permit issued hereunder or an order issued hereunder, the regulator or its duly authorized agent may enter upon any land on which there is reason to believe an excavation is being conducted or has been conducted since August 24th, 1979. So I think that if we decide we want to do inspections, we certainly, it looks to me like we can. Also I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, I was just gonna add, that's exactly the only thing I found that was remotely related to this. But
I also noticed in 155E11 regulations, Roman numeral 1, the regulator may adopt such regulations as may be reasonably necessary to carry out the provisions of this chapter, including adopting a permit fee schedule. So I think the way I read that is we can have regulations.
Right.
And in fact, we can charge for permits and things like that. And that section goes on with a little bit more detail about the kinds of things we can do and things like that. So I think that if we want to do the inspections, we can. I don't see anything that says we need to, although 155E 4-A, minimum and express operational standards, sort of says the minimums of what have to be done. I'm not going to read it unless you want me to, because it's half a page long, but it has a set of standards about how the excavation is done that we may very well want to either include in the inspection, or certainly it would be a good reason to inspect if we wanted to make sure that those minimums were being achieved.
Thank you. Good. Right. Is there anything in our rules of procedure or something like that that states that we do this inspection, Judge?
And not that I know of, Mr. Chairman, but I would like to refer us to the earth excavation restoration regulations. This is a separate document. On page 15, it basically says throughout, it says a lot of the same thing that's in the RSA that the Vice Chairman was just referring to. But here it says, this is under the section of enforcement, page 15 of the earth excavation restoration regulation. This is a document that we have here for through the planning board. To ascertain if there is compliance with this regulation, a permit issued hereunder or issued hereunder, the planning board or its duly authorized agent may enter upon and enter upon any land on which there is reason to believe an excavation is being conducted or has been conducted since the effective date of this regulation.
That's exactly what you read. So this says we may get into this if we want to. Yes.
Well, we got a small issue with a small, but there are abutters there. Because I remember one of the issues was that somebody was complaining about machinery and their property was next door. I can't remember the people's names, but that was what prompted the inspection. And if in fact someone were to do some sort of excavation that was above and beyond the scope of what is legally allowed in terms of size, volume, or something like that, and it were to affect an abutter's property, the liability would probably be lie with the excavator, but to a certain degree with the regulating agency too, if no inspections had ever been done. I'm not sure of that. That's a question that would have to be asked somewhere else. Who is the liability? If somebody went in and stripped away all the topsoil and started digging sand and it all washed over onto the neighbor's land, and there was a lawsuit. If somebody come to the town and say, how come you let this happen? I have no idea. It's a consideration. Because that was part of it last time.
Well, being afraid of what might happen or hypothetical situation, that's what makes these books thicker and thicker and thicker. Does anybody think that we should set up a gravel pit inspection yearly for the 2 gravel pits?
The selectmen have had feedback about potentially, I don't want to say illegal operations, but unusual operations taking place in some of the pits. And we've had people go in to check. Were they in violation? We didn't think they were in violation, but we had feedback from abutters that we should check.
What is, sorry,
Okay.
what does unusual mean?
Maybe not all excavating, maybe
Burying trash.
burying trash, maybe digging too deep into the water table. Things that shouldn't be done in a gravel pit.
Burying trash would just be, that would apply to all of us, right? Whether or not we've got a pit?
Don't know if that's true.
I didn't hear that question.
Can you bury trash in your backyard? He wants to know if we can bury trash in our backyard. I don't know.
And is that a,
I'm sure you can if it's not toxic.
so why wouldn't somebody who owns a pit be able to do that?
Who said they can?
Somebody was raising the question, I guess, right? I mean, I don't think anyone said
We
anything.
asked questions about unusual activity. Someone said maybe it's trash being dumped. Maybe it's building material being dumped.
Wouldn't volume have a certain amount to do with it? Your trash, your neighbor's trash, you open up a dump, I mean, there's all
Construction debris?
there's all kinds of levels.
Somewhere in 155E it mentioned trash, and that was a activity that was not allowed.
In a gravel pit.
Right. No.
Can I ask some questions about, I want to back up a little bit because I really feel like I don't feel like 100% sure I understand is going on here in
Okay.
town. These regulations came into effect in '79 or so, and those two pits that are still in operation, they were in operation prior to the regulation, and they were grandfathered, and therefore there is no permit for those.
Don't know.
Well, do we know that the Long Meadow pit was open prior to 79?
I'm asking the question, I don't know, I mean.
I don't think so, but maybe.
I do have an answer for that.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Comeau was assigned to look up the Long Meadow name.
Yes.
I came across a document from the Wiggins concerning an application for removal of earth material back in 1976. So that predates to when it was bought by Dianne Smith in August 4th of 1998.
There was,
Okay, so, and according to our regulation, an excavation which lawfully existed and was in use on or before August 24th, 1979, may continue to excavate without a permit, subject to a bunch of conditions. So,
there's 2 gravel pits in town. They've both been there since before that date.
so we don't have a permit on file from them, I would guess.
Right.
And this regulation seems to be mostly about the permitting process, which it sounds like nobody's ever gone through.
Right.
I've heard that from, I guess, Eddie, maybe at last meeting, that every year they do an intent to excavate or something.
With the state.
Is it with the state? Does it go through the selectmen? Like, because Eddie said it was kind of like the timber.
Well, we see timber, I'm not sure I've seen permit things.
He said every year they put a permit in with the state,
That is correct.
and the state comes down and inspects it.
That is correct.
Do we get a copy of what they file?
The planning board does not, but the code enforcement officer does have copies of those in his office. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Rob, as long as I'm not interfering with your
No,
thought.
if you can fill in some of the gaps, I'd appreciate it.
I'm not so sure that this does, or maybe perhaps it complicates things. One of the requirements for the permit is soil erosion, to check on that. And with this document that we have, I just noticed it just now, for the earth excavation restoration regulations, there is an Appendix A entitled Soil Erosion and Sedimentation Control Subdivision and Site Plan Regulations. It appears that this is an Appendix A for the earth excavation. In here, on page 4 of the appendix, there is Roman numeral 8 entitled Inspection. And here is a shall. Inspection shall be made by the planning board or its designated agent during development to ensure compliance with the certified plan and that control measures and facilities are properly performed or installed and maintained. The planning board may require the permittee to verify through progress reports that soil erosion, sediment control measures and facilities have been performed or installed according to the certified plan and are being operated and maintained. So that's the only thing that I spotted so far that, according to our document, says that the planning board shall do this.
Is that also out of RSA 155E? Like the
I
first-
don't know of any regulations that states this in 155E. So the question is, and the way we in the planning board have looked at it before, is that we can make more stringent regulations, but we cannot make them less stringent than what the state
Right.
requires. That's the way I understand it.
David?
It appears it's referring to a permittee, and if these pits have been open prior to the DRSA date, they don't have a permit, so they're not considered a permittee. So there's no need to do the inspections.
Okay.
Well, that's not true. Not that I want to get in somebody's parade at all, but the inspections have nothing to do with the permitting process. The inspections have to do with soil erosion and proper activity in a pit.
Right.
Whether there's a permit or not a permit, the idea is to prevent environmental damage, not validate a permit
Right.
or validate a permit. I mean,
But if there's no permit, there's no inspection.
Well, somebody's operating a gravel pit and they're grandfathered because they don't need a permit because it was prior to a specific date.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they can do whatever they want
That's right.
with the land.
That's right.
They have to follow the regulations for gravel mining, whether they're, permitted or not
Sure.
permitted. And the inspection process is only to make sure that the regulations are being complied with, not whether there's a permit in existence or not.
Does this inspection form that we developed meet with the inspection criteria that obviously 155 that you found wrote?
It's probably not exactly, but it's probably the right ballpark, and I think that we can regulate it however we want. And I think also in this excavation regulation, there's a checklist that's, I think, tied to the permitting process.
Right.
It's got, 21 things for the application, and then 7 things for the reclamation plan. But we could also look to see if we wanted to pull any items from this checklist into things that we're gonna look for specifically. Maybe, I don't know,
Well,
if we wanna do the inspections.
Well, these 5 points on this form covers stuff that we talked about last month. My question, I guess, is there anything we overlooked that really should be on this thing?
So the
Not
minimum,
that I want to grow it, but
right, the minimum standards, which are 155E:4-A. Let's see, no excavation shall be permitted below road level within 50 feet of the right of way of any public highway.
right.
2, no excavation shall be permitted within 50 feet of the boundary of a disapproving abutter, within 150 feet of a dwelling which is either existed or for which a building permit has been issued at the time the excavation is commenced. 2A, no excavation shall be permitted within 75 feet of any great pond, navigable river, or any other standing body of water, 10 acres or more in area, or within 25 feet of any other stream, river, or brook which normally flows throughout the year, or any naturally occurring standing body of water, blah, blah, blah. So there's something to do with wet stuff. Item number 3, vegetation shall be maintained or provided within the peripheral areas. Item 4, drainage shall be maintained so as to prevent the accumulation of freestanding water or for prolonged periods. 5, no fuels, lubricants, or other toxic or polluting material shall be stored on site. 6, where temporary slopes will exceed a grade of 1:1, a fence or other suitable barricade shall be erected to warn of danger, blah, blah. 7, prior to the removal of topsoil or other overburden material from any land area that has not been excavated, the excavator shall file a reclamation bond, blah, blah. 8, nothing in this chapter. Okay, so those are the minimum standard issues that they've laid out in the RSAs.
And that's 155
E 4-A.
4-A.
There is also just 155E4, which is prohibited projects. That would be something that we wouldn't permit somebody to do those things. I mean, that might be something we'd also want to look at, whether we want to inspect for those things, but.
I think I'd be sensitive to the water issues within a boundary, within 50 feet of an objecting abutter.
And 10 feet between an agreeing and one, I think it said.
Is that what it was? Well,
And 50 feet below the road, or must not be below the road?
I think it was,
if you're within 50 feet of the road, there's some restrictions, I think.
no excavation shall be permitted below road level within 50 feet of the right of way of
Okay,
any public
all right.
highway,
All right.
unless such excavation is for the purposes of said highway.
I think we got Churchill Brook back there, don't we? I think.
Behind both of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Hanson behind Moose Mountain Road and Churchill Brook behind Governor's Road. David?
Just to ensure, what I'm going to say is that misconstrued, I definitely support protecting our environment and abutters of the property. My question comes down to the point of, how do you enforce something like this? So if you go into the enforcement section of 155E10, if they're in violation of any of the things that Rob said, it says that we have the right to revoke or suspend their permit. How do you revoke or suspend a permit that doesn't exist?
The building inspector has the right to,
Cease and
with the
desist.
selectmen's approval, issue a cease and desist on any operation that has to do with excavation construction. The town has that right to do a cease and desist. If you're not gonna do it right, you can't do it. Building permits, even if you don't have a permit, you're obviously operating as an entity. You're excavating earth, you can be told to cease and desist if you were digging into the neighbor's property. Permit or no permit.
So, anything filed in an inspection that isn't compliant gets relayed to the selectmen, they enforce it.
So do you guys have an issue with the fact that our code enforcement officer happens to be one of the owners of one of the pits? You guys have a way of handling
Yeah,
that?
We don't inspect it, the planning board's been inspecting it.
we're gonna inspect it. I think, through this discussion, I think that we should have an inspection, and we can set a date for an inspection, and we can send a couple volunteers out to do the inspection on the pits. I think, through some of this discussion, that, gravel pit inspection, we don't have to say form on it anymore, should be a little more comprehensive and include everything in 155EA4.
That's put the date on it and the property you're inspecting with the map and lot number on it, right?
Yep.
That's what we
Date,
did in the past.
Map and lot.
map, lot,
Who inspected it?
inspector. Diane?
I'm sorry, I'm confused. I thought the responsibility of the community was to ensure that the excavations, new excavations were permitted, and then that the inspections, and I haven't read this as thoroughly as others, so I apologize if I'm ignorant here. But if the role of the planning board is to issue permits for excavation, then, and according to our own adopted guidelines, and the inspections relate to the issuance of those permits, then, and I don't, if I missed it, I apologize, but I haven't heard anybody cite where it requires a community to conduct inspections on something that it never permitted. That's the state's responsibility. And, well, Gary, you shake your head no, but Ed said that it's the state that does that. And if there's no permit, then what's the authority of the community or the planning board to enforce something that it didn't permit?
We can inspect gravel pits. We got 2 in town. We have inspected them in the past. It's something that we got away from. And being sensitive to the environment and the town, it's something that we should put back in place and make a schedule out of it. Any new permits, any new pits would be permitted through the enforcement officer.
I haven't reviewed this as thoroughly as I should have, and so I'll not comment any further on it.
Yeah.
The state doesn't have the resources to run around checking gravel pits. Not that I'm saying that's somebody else's fault, or they should have the resources. They just don't have that type of infrastructure in Concord. With just about any of the DES, all of them, they really run with low voltage. You might call them up any given day with a question and wind up talking to the head of the DES, he may be the guy that picks up the phone. If you go to Massachusetts and do the same thing, you'd have to go through 14 or 18 or 25 people just to get to that guy, if in fact you could. You're very likely to talk to him on the phone if you dial Concord here. That's the level of the infrastructure. That's my point, is that the state does not have the resources to do those kind of inspections. Whose liability is it if somebody damages someone else's property other than the person that did the damage? There may be an oversight liability somewhere. I don't know. That's a question for the town attorney. Would the town be liable? I don't know you want to spend the money talking to the town attorney, but if somebody were to do something goofy, I mean, I was the guy that inspected Long Meadow last time, and they weren't doing anything inappropriate. Everything was just fine. I haven't been there in 5 years, maybe 7. So I couldn't tell you what's going on now, but who's got liability, I have no idea. But it is the town's purview, whether it's permitted or not. Just because the wording of the law says they're grandfathered. If they're doing something that the town assumes responsibility for in their permitting process, they still assume responsibility for inspection just because somebody's grandfathered anyway. That's standard procedures just about anywhere you go. I deal with it all the time.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry, I don't agree.
Rob?
Well, that's the way it is. Whether you agree or not, the
Thank you.
law would say
Rob?
if the town responsible is responsible.
You know,
RSA 155E:1, Roman numeral 3. This is a set of definitions. Regulator means the planning board of a city or town.
right.
Or if a town at blah, 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 right? So this is the regulator for this section is by default the planning board. And I don't think that our town has done anything different from that. So I think that all the enforcement stuff and everything else, if there is any, would fall on us. So I think that's the first thing I wanted to mention is that the RSAs do deal with that. And it's not the state. The second thing I'd like to point out is that in 155E:2, which the section is called permit required, Roman numeral 1 is existing excavations, and I think this is the section that deals with R2 pits, which, if I understand correctly, that they existed before August 24th, 1979. And it goes on for, I don't know, half a page about how those particular cases are handled. And it does say that, so this is ones that don't require a permit. Item C says such an excavation shall be performed in compliance with the express operational standards of RSA 155E:4-A, which I spoke to earlier. And the reclamation standards of 155E:5 and 155E:5A. Any violations of those standards shall be enforceable pursuant to 155E:10. So even though the pits aren't required to get a permit, they are required to follow RSA 155, specifically for 155E, and specifically 4A, 5, 5A, and 10. It also goes on as item D under, this is in 155E:2, Roman numeral 1, D. The owners or operators of an existing excavation area for which no permit has been obtained under this chapter shall file a report with the local regulator within 1 year after receiving written notice of this requirement from the regulator, and in no case later than 2 years following August 4th, 1989. The report shall include the location of the excavation, the date the excavation first began, 2, a description of limits or permissible expansion as described in subparagraph B, which are claimed to apply to the excavation, 3, an estimate of the area which has been excavated at the time of the report, and 4, an estimate of the amount of commercially viable earth material still available on the parcel. So it sounds like we should have that on file in a perfect world. We should have gotten a report from these two operations that has at least that much information in it. I'm guessing George didn't run across that in the files, but we also didn't ask him to look for it, so. Anyway, so that, are yield the floor. I got nothing else to say right now.
Yeah,
I don't think we're the enforcement body either. I think we are simply the information gatherers. We're the inspectors. The selectmen are the enforcement bodies. No cease and desist can be issued by a planning board. It has to be issued by the selectmen.
I agree 100% with you. That's how it's set up. Now, back to the business in hand. Does anybody think we should not inspect gravel pits? Yes.
I guess I don't know where I stand on that right now, but I'd like to, I think it would help me if the selectmen, do you guys have, you guys are where complaints go to, right? Do you think that, given the two pits that are there, and where they're situated, it's just, where the abutters can see or not see what's going on there, do you feel like we can rely on neighbors complaining to identify problems? I don't know. I've been to one of the pits. I haven't been to the other. I don't really even know where it is exactly, let alone how it sits relative to, how visible it is for the public. But given the particulars of these pits, could we get away with just relying on complaints if something bad's going on?
I don't think I'd recommend that. Given that the planning board did inspections, and that precedence has been set, I'd continue with them. Doesn't take that long to do. It says we're supposed to. I mean, you found it. The regulators are supposed to check it out, comply with the existing best in practices.
I'd like to stop inspecting gravel pits. I think we got two pits in town, and I don't think there's been any problems, and I don't anticipate to see any problems. But that's now, and this is all in front of us now, and I don't think it's a big deal to put together a more comprehensive pit inspection procedure and just go out in the summertime and do it. Once a year. We could have it show up on the agenda the same month every year.
And I think what Ed just showed me in the RSA's, the owners of the pits are supposed to provide the planning board with a report every 2 years, did it say?
Any 2-year period.
Gary?
That's if the pit is active, right, probably.
Well, if it's not active, we should jump on that, right? After X number of years
Excuse me.
of inactivity, it's no longer an active pit. Do we shut that down?
Yeah, isn't it a volume issue when it's active? I don't know.
I don't know, but I'll jump on inactivity.
Well, you could make them get a permit then. If they went inactive for a year, then they're no longer grandfathered, but
That's right.
then you could make them get a permit.
Well,
It doesn't change any of the basic premises though. It's still regulatable by law.
That's right.
And it's gotta be inspected, if it's gonna be inspected, whether it's permitted or not. It has,
May not issue a permit.
huh?
You may not issue a permit if there's some other,
No, it may not. See, when this was a big deal, it was the Albee pit, and that was acres and acres and acres, and it was excavated all over creation, and it was a big to-do, and the whole planning board would march on down there with the selectmen, and
Where was it?
like, down next to the bait shop down there,
behind lavenders.
way back in there. I mean, it's a big pit, huge. And somebody bought it, and there was a big to-do about it. And Wakefield was involved too, because part of it was in Wakefield, and God, it went on and on about reclamation. It was a big fiasco. So that's when they started doing this, inspecting. And then we inspected the Long Meadow pit, Smith's pit. And I was the guy that was designated to do that at the time because, I don't know, that's the way it was.
What's the status of the Albee pit now?
It's inactive. It's been closed down. And reclaimed supposedly. I haven't been in there in years, but Ever died last week, 2 weeks ago. But, I mean, Longville was a very low stature compared compared to that one, which is what started the whole thing.
Right. Rob?
So, some number of years ago, somebody told me that our zoning didn't allow for gravel pits and that these were here because they're grandfathered. I'm not sure I believe that anymore, now that I know our zoning better, and that, it might be that so I guess one of my questions is, do we think that somebody could run a new gravel pit, as a home occupation? So it would fall under, it would be potentially, if it were considered home occupation, it would be, I think, probably allowed by our zoning, or there's a chance of it being allowed by our zoning. I mean, is that something that we could foresee happening here in town?
Another gravel pit?
Yeah, because I'd say our regulations, I mean, this is Microsoft Word regulation. I don't think it's been touched in 100 years, or since the 80s, right? So
Well, it is that now, isn't it? Sort of?
Well, I don't know. I'm just wondering whether the reason I ask is because we might want to think about whether we want to revisit the regulations that we've got, which would, if we did that, we could stipulate that, if you're running a pit, you have to file a report, right? And you have to, and we will have inspections, and here's the form and whatever, right? I mean, and we sort of like just, I don't know, ad hoc just dealing with inspections because they were done before, but I don't think we really have anything in our rules of procedure or regulations or anything like that to say that that's something that we do, or that we expect the pits to give us anything.
You want to open a gravel pit?
I don't, but I get a for rocks if there's a market for them. Maybe I'll get rid of them. I don't know.
There's a market in New Jersey for rocks.
So to recap, Member Collins feels it would be a good idea to review our existing.
I'm asking the question of whether or not we expect that new pits could open, or that if we want some additional clarity about how the two existing pits are managed, right? Reviewing the regulations and maybe writing a one-pager for, how we manage them, right? Would be maybe helpful. But if we don't think any more pits are going to open, maybe we don't have to deal with that happening.
You want to look into gravel pit regulations in the town for new businesses around the town?
I would say that's a good idea also, because I began review of the changes in the RSAs. And I'm interested to go back to the document I provided last time to see if there are any changes in the law. So maybe it would be a good idea to look at how we have this set up.
That changed the law since the 80s.
It may have. May not have.
But if you go through 155E, after each section, it, has the history. It says what changed roughly, what section has changed.
But if you don't look at how this looks to this, then you don't know how this is.
Right.
That's my point.
The business today is inspections. If the board wants to go into regulations of gravel pits and work on the zoning for gravel pits, we can incorporate the inspection into that and do the whole thing as new business at another time. Or we can wrap up this inspection right now. Maybe that's getting ahead of ourselves. If we're gonna look into the zoning and do something on gravel pits. So with that, does the board want to get into new zoning for gravel pits? New gravel pits? Yes.
I'm sorry, just, again, I apologize for sounding ignorant about this, but I looked quickly through the
I don't
zoning
apologize for
ordinances.
sounding ignorant.
Well, I will. In Rob's right, there's nothing in our zoning that addresses excavation. We do have this document that's part of our packet here for Brookfield, earth excavation and restoration regulations. So there are excavation and restoration regulations that are documented. Presumably they're still current and haven't been revoked. So we already have the regulations in place. I mean, it's not just gravel pits, it's any excavation activity. Somebody could start a quarry and be quarrying stone. So,
Would that be beneficial to the town?
well, it's permitted now, according to the fact that we have regulations to regulate it. If it was prohibited, it wouldn't have it as part of a permit process. Would it? Or perhaps I'm wrong.
Gary?
Yeah, I move the, well, let's say, I think we should deal with that issue at another meeting with all those issues of, I wasn't gonna make a motion though.
Okay, wait a minute.
Okay.
Okay, make a motion.
I move that we simply delegate someone or two people from the planning board to visit the two gravel pits, visually inspect them and report back here, whether we use this form or not. But that's what the motion is, that we visit the two gravel pits. It's a minor procedure. It doesn't hurt anything. It doesn't take that much time. So it does satisfy the fact that someone might take a position, did you do your job or not? And we have done in the past. So my motion is, do we?
I object to that motion. That is just
Too long.
It's, my
No,
God.
I'm sorry. No, I know.
George.
George, forget it. I move that we inspect the two gravel pits in town using this form as it exists.
Thank you, Gary.
How's that?
That's much more reasonable.
Sorry.
Will you amend your motion to add a date in June? When the weather is good, when the water is down, and there's no snow around?
Or an alternative, or as an alternative, rather than make the motion that we do the inspection, instead make the motion that we add it to our calendar. I mean, it's
Well,
6
make the
months away.
inspection. I didn't stipulate a time. I just said make the inspection. If the planning board decides they want to do it in June, it's up to the planning board to make that decision. Just that we do the inspection.
Well, we want to get this, let's just get this, make a motion that we'll get this done in June.
Okay, let's amend the motion. I move that we inspect the two gravel pits in town before June 31st.
Second. Discussion? All in favor? Go ahead.
Is there going to be a form? What will this inspection entail?
The form in front of us.
I did include that before, excuse me.
Because it hasn't even been adopted as a working document. It's listed as a possible working document. I don't know if protocol is going to come into this, and there was some discussion whether or not there needed to be more items. I just want to make sure that,
Okay, take the form off the motion.
Why?
We don't even have the form yet,
Okay, we don't have a form yet.
but let's get it on the calendar.
It wasn't even on the motion I just gave, but you added that, but I will say,
my question was, what does the inspection entail?
to make sure they were in compliance with 155E. And that's described in 155E, so you go in there and make sure the reclamation is up to snuff. If there is any requirement for reclamation, of 3 acres is the most that you can mine at once, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
This motion is going to essentially put an inspection on the calendar.
And if I understand correctly, then the details of what that inspection entails will be determined before or at that time.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Can I offer another motion?
Sure, wait. This motion is accepted. You put that on the calendar, George? Planning, I'd like to see it show up at the planning board meeting in May.
On the agenda.
On the agenda. That'll be a reminder for us to assign inspectors. Ed,
I would like to make a motion to accept the working document for the gravel pit inspection form that we have in front of us.
a possible working document?
Correct. Well, the working
So we
document.
accept it as a working document first? then?
Yes.
Let's
I'm
proceed.
sorry, are you accepting it as finished, or
As a working document.
just create it, just start working on it? Get it, so it's a working document, not an accepted document.
Correct.
Got it.
Isn't that what I-
Second.
He said something that made me think that there was something different, but.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Document accepted as a working document.
Mr. Chairman, I think can we go over the things that we've already somewhat sort of tentatively added to this document? Just to, I'm not sure if all the things that we may have discussed have gone on there.
This is a working document.
Right.
There was some discussion about making it a little more comprehensive.
Right. So I think you had said, remove the word form.
Yes.
I think that somebody had suggested map and lot number,
Yep. Date,
date.
inspector.
I think that it would be maybe helpful if we, had a little blurbs, pursuant to RSA 155:-E: something, that, what our justification for doing this is,
Yes.
which RSA.
Yes.
I'm not sure exactly what that should be yet, but,
How about 155E?
there you go. Just keep it general.
Inspection date.
Well, actually, so 155E:10, Roman numeral 3, says to ascertain, under enforcement, this is to ascertain if there is compliance with this chapter, a permit issued hereunder or an order issued hereunder, the regulator, which is us, or may enter upon any land on which there is reason to believe an excavation is being conducted or has been conducted. So 155E:10, Roman numeral 3, tells us, it basically says we can inspect. So maybe that's what we put as the basis for being able to do this.
I'm okay with that. Will you read out that RSA 155E, the rest of it?
155-E:10, Roman numeral 3.
Can I add something to this?
Yeah.
I don't know how important all this is with the form. I think what would happen is it should really be called a gravel inspection report. Because someone's going to go out and inspect something and there's going to be some sort of evidence of something amiss. If there is or there isn't, it'll be in a report. And the report comes back to the planning board, and the next move would probably be to send the code enforcement officer down to look it over, or the selectmen, because they're the enforcement body in the town. And that's when you would probably get into just what was specific violations for 155E would be, because that, if there were violations, then they would be issuing a cease and desist based on particular violations. So this would be a report, a gravel pit inspection report, and how formal it has to be, I don't know, but it's a report based on the planning board's objective observations of what's going on down there. And they come back here with a report to the board, and the board makes a decision on where to go from there. We turn it over to the selectmen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, to finish our thought, we had gravel pit inspection form, we removed form, this is a working document. in the place of form, would you like to put report?
Yep.
Great, I'll just write that idea.
And maybe at the
Thank
bottom, we could have a section, like just comments.
Yep.
Right, so, and some space where the inspectors can write some text
Yeah,
if they wanted to
space is
do
good.
more than just a checkbox, right?
Space is good, yeah. Diane?
Rob had pointed out this section earlier in our meeting. It's 155E:4-A, minimum and express operational standards. And
Right.
it goes from Roman numeral 1 to Roman numeral 8. And I would think that those are the standards that should be inspected, not for somewhat subjective
Yeah,
measures.
that whole section, about a half a paragraph.
Right, there will be at least 8 items.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
so it's not these 5? that
No,
are
no,
on-
the talk about making this more comprehensive
Okay,
was gonna be to add that.
okay.
And if any of these
Sorry, I
5
missed
are
that.
duplicate to that, we'll just run them
Okay.
over. George, do you, follow what we wanna change on this report?
I followed some of it. Let's see, to remove the word form and replace that with comments, with, excuse me, with the report at the bottom to place comments. And let's see, also suggestion of adding the date, the map,
Yeah.
the lot number, inspector,
Yeah,
and that's all I got so far.
and gravel inspection,
Report,
gravel pit inspection report.
yes.
And we want to have a little paragraph noting 155-E-10, Roman numeral 3, right, Rob?
If that's what I said, then.
Yeah, would you like to
So,
make the comment?
so rewrite that whole paragraph and put that paragraph in there? 155E:10.
Well, no, we want to have the report refer back to 155E:10, Roman numeral 3,
Okay.
which
So,
gives us the reason for making this report.
okay, so something to the effect of, per authority of RSA 155E:10-3, the planning board will, something to that effect?
Or, I mean, I would just maybe say, inspection pursuant to RSA 155-E:10, Roman numeral 3, period. That way, if anyone complains about why we're doing this, or somebody who's asked to do an inspection wants to know why we're doing this, they'll, be led to the right RSA.
Great.
They didn't complain last time.
Okay, so
The owners of the pits, that is.
So it's kind of a long way around. We got some traction on it. We're gonna get a inspection report to use on our inspection report. In the meantime, for new business at a later date, Rob mentioned something about the zoning of gravel pits.
Well, Diane started asking the question, we got sidetracked off that topic about whether, you made a comment that sounded like you thought the fact that we have gravel regulations implies that it's allowed in our zoning. I think you made a comment or a question to that
Right.
respect. So our zoning is written in a permissive fashion, which basically means that only things that are explicitly permitted are allowed to be done. If everything else is prohibited. And our zoning is basically residential agricultural. And so those are the only things that are permitted. And things associated with residential and agriculture can be permitted. I think gravel pits running a large gravel pit probably would not be permitted because it's a commercial operation that doesn't have anything to do with residential living or agriculture. But I think somebody could make a case that we do have fairly permissive home occupation zoning. And so most kinds of things that you do as a occupation on your property probably would be permitted, with a few exceptions, like, I don't know, it's dog hospitals and kennels and things like that, right?
Junkyards, gas stations, auto repair,
Fraternities.
fraternities,
I was thinking about opening a fraternity, but then, you know,
breweries.
anyway, so I think that we might have to deal with somebody deciding that they want to open a pit as a home occupation and they run themselves with their family. And I think you can have up to 4 employees for a home occupation. 4 employees that don't live on the property. So that was sort of where I was going, is that I don't think somebody could, the pit you're talking about, the Albee pit, huge operation, dozens of employees. I don't think that our zoning would allow that, but it might allow something smaller scale.
I don't think they had a lot of employees, they just had a huge mess.
So,
Yeah, well, maybe somebody could create a huge mess as a home occupation.
With a huge machine, you know.
so it makes sense to look at the home occupation,
And
permanent uses.
if we wanted to, we could add it to, if we don't want somebody to do that, we could add it as a list, up to the list of not permitted uses.
Right alongside the,
Dog kennels and filling stations or whatever, right? So, I mean, that would be one possibility. I mean, I don't really have I'm not suggesting that we do that, but I think that's a possibility if we wanted to.
we could bring that up at another meeting, home occupation, allowed, not allowed. A home occupation review.
I mean, pits are loud and dusty and,
Just out of there,
yeah. So,
someone might tumble down a mountain away in a truck.
Well, agriculture can get loud and smelly.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I think Ed especially, I was upwind at least, Ed was downwind.
It's okay now.
Yeah, just all home occupation discussion.
For the next agenda?
Yeah. Moving on.
So, sorry, before we leave this topic, I mentioned earlier that in 155E:2, Roman numeral 1, this is existing excavations, item D, it talks about the owners of existing excavations have to provide, 4 pieces of information to the planning board. Do you want to ask George to look and see if he can find that, or do we want to try to follow up with the pit owners to see if they want to provide that, or should we look at that and see if that's information we care to track,
I'm not interested.
or we just let it go because it's from the 80s?
Yeah, good idea. Thank you. Amending the rules of procedure, calendar of events. Who brought that up last time?
I think I did. Sorry.
What were your thoughts on that?
We have a few things that we keep, that is too easy for us to forget to do.
Right,
Capital improvement, at least right now, right? Capital improvement would be on the list. Pit inspections.
yep.
What else did there was like 1 or 2 other things that we,
We had CIP.
It's just, we still have it.
yeah.
Calendar of events.
Well, just
Okay.
things that, right, I mean, were there other things that
Do we have a calendar of events?
I don't think so.
So this is.
George, do you remember what else we had put on that list? Were there other things that we'd suggested go on there?
I don't think we did, but one of the things that we might want to consider is zoning ordinance, amending the zoning ordinance. That usually comes up near the end of the year. Another possibility might be, along with that, scheduling for public hearings for amending the zoning ordinance, because that has to comply with the requirements of the state.
Well, that's on an as-needed
Yes,
basis, so
that's true.
we may not amend the zoning ordinance next year.
That'd be awesome.
Home occupation.
So Instead of calendar of events, shouldn't it be like schedule, planning board schedule or something like that? What else would you call it? It sounds like, you know, you're like a wedding is coming up.
Yeah. Planning board, yeah. We only have one thing,
Well, we have CIP and we have,
two things, we have two things. I don't think we need a calendar of events with two things.
okay, well, we have to nominate SRPC, right, and TAC. We have,
Okay, now you're
4
talking,
years.
now we got three things.
I don't know, I mean, I think if we had it, we'd have a place to put it and, you know, maybe we'd add more
We
stuff.
have to vote whether or not to send dues to SRP.
Well, a good idea is if you're thinking of the future, when we're not here, new boards will know exactly when things have to get done, that's all.
Yes.
Perhaps an alternative, instead of having a calendar per se, but just have a check, not a checklist, but a open list of recurring activities of the planning board. And it might be master plan every 5 years, appointments to SRPC 2 and 4 years, you know, pit inspections annually, June, you know, and just instead of trying to put them on an annual calendar, just list the activities, whether the annual, periodic, just so that it's in front of everybody instead of trying to put it into a calendar.
Judge, will you make a possible working document for next time called, okay, Diane?
Recurring activities of the planning board.
Get that?
Yes.
Right.
I like that idea. We can put on there something like master plan might be 10 years out. It's just gonna sit there with, you know, 2020,
Yeah.
and, you know, we'll see it occasionally when we look at the,
Something like a holiday list. Application for a voluntary merger. Does anyone remember what that is?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you have a document in possession from the assessor clerk requesting, well, actually, it's a document to
A
be
memo?
signed. Yes, the memo and the rest of the document is right underneath that.
Okay, here it is right here.
Also, Mr. Chairman, if you like, I have made up maps of the property in question. It's not necessary for the planning board to have it, but they wanted to look at the property that is suggesting to be merged. I can
We
pass this along.
distributed them.
Yes.
This is on Fish and Game,
Thank you.
Tumble Down Dick, merging all the lots that they bought. Here is the, do you have,
I didn't make copies of that. Would you like me to make that?
yes, please.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just to remind everybody, Appendix C of the Rules of Procedure deals with voluntary merger of pre-existing lots. And
Right.
basically, unlike law line adjustments and things like that come through us, this case goes through the assessor clerk, basically, for all of the paperwork and everything else.
And she has that all here, we're gonna get copies of it. And the memo from the assessor clerk says, please see the attached application for the voluntary parcel merger. The recording fee has already been sent by Fish and Game. The stamp is on the letter. Once the decision is made, please place a copy in my box so I can send the changes to Avatar.
Mr. Chairman, in that, I'm sorry, if I may. Yeah, in that same appendix C that the Vice Chairman was referring to, it may not be necessary for us to even sign up a consider upon if you look at the parenthetical of that document. Let's see here, let me read it a little before they keep the context. No new survey plat need be recorded, but a notice of the merger sufficient to identify the relevant parcels and endorsement in writing by the planning board or its designee. And parenthetically it says, in Brookfield, the designee is the assessor clerk. Shall be filed by recording in the registry of deeds and a copy mailed to the municipality's assessing officials. So, I mean, there is, from this document here, there is an avenue by which it doesn't even have to come before the planning board and that we sign it, if I read this correctly.
There isn't even a place on here for the planning board to sign.
Yes.
That's the abutter notification.
Right. There's the letter.
This is the original.
Is this the form, George?
Yes, yes, that's not our form, that's, I believe, a state form. Or maybe,
This is the one they want signed.
yes.
So I'm asking everybody to take a look at these, because before we sign, we'll just make sure that
You look.
these are the parcels, right? Building lots gone. Oh, yeah.
This is, again, sorry, my ignorance here, but is not that section of Tumble Down Dick Road an accepted town road?
Yes.
Yeah.
And is there any problem with having an accepted town road running through a single private, or it's not private anymore, it's public lot? I've never seen, in looking at all of the tax maps, any one lot. I mean, we just talked about frontage, we've got a proposal for frontage being a water body or a road. And here we're gonna now have a public road running through one lot. I wonder if that, and it's gonna be owned by the state. I wonder if that's gonna create any difficulties.
Is there anything beyond that lot on that road?
Oh, yeah, the houses.
So, I guess I don't understand the problem.
There's houses and stuff beyond that.
Okay.
I mean, I think that if that were the end of the road, we could end it sooner, right? Maybe, save some money, but.
What's your concern? I didn't follow you.
It just strikes me as odd. I don't think there's any other place, at least that I have seen, where a single lot spans a public road. But It just
I'm
may
thinking
just
too.
not have happened before. I'm
Yeah,
trying, I don't know what the implications of this might be downstream.
There's a road that goes into it.
Will the state now have any control that will interfere with the use of that public road because they own property on both sides, all one lot? Is this in perpetuity?
Yeah, they don't.
Until they sell it. You never can tell.
Maybe they'll have to maintain it.
But they don't own the road, the town owns
Okay,
Right away.
okay, all
that
right.
50 feet
I'm
wide.
not trying to be difficult, it was
No, no,
just something
it's good to make sure.
Fair question. But,
Interesting.
would anyone like to sign this? I would.
I think George is right, that our rules of procedure say that we've designated the assessor clerk. I mean, it doesn't mean that we can't take that back for this particular case, but I think that, you know, Appendix C is clear that we've traditionally designated that basically fully to the assessor clerk.
I want to sign off on it.
Do you want a motion? I'm just, I,
Sign
Yeah,
one
okay,
document.
I'll motion.
We're gonna sign one document.
Right. I make a motion that we sign this off and accept the voluntary parcel merger.
second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Why?
Opposed? Anyone else want to sign it?
Sure.
That's all right. Nice pen too.
I got one.
Works?
Oh, a little history. This is gonna be a easement, and this is New Hampshire fishing game, correct?
It's not an easement.
It's not an easement.
They're taking
They
their
just
lot.
bought it.
They're taking, they bought it, and now they're taking their lot to make it one big lot.
And is it true that there is not a conservation easement on it?
Don't know. Was in current use, that doesn't mean it was a conservation either. I doubt.
Somebody
I
else
doubt
want to sign this?
It was a conservation easement.
So the state could decide to sell it at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is this just, I mean, so I've learned in the last year that the town is not subject to our zoning regulations.
Yes.
With respect to land that the town owns. Is the state subject to our zoning?
I suspect not.
Nope.
So they could put a Walmart there if they wanted.
Yep.
Gonna say a little.
It's like being part of Concord, it's not part of the town anymore, really.
The government can put a radiation waste dump site
You-
anywhere in town they want.
They are looking for places.
Good.
There's legislation for that.
There's only one more slide here.
Yes.
I just want to point out that this land acquisition or sale by the Robbins was called out and recognized in the latest issue of New Hampshire Wildlife.
Nice.
Did they mention anything about putting a nuclear
No,
waste dump
Walmart.
there?
Walmart,
Okay.
right next to that big marsh that's out there.
The depleted uranium dump?
There's legislation to prevent one from coming to the state, because this state has so much ground that we are the perfect place to bury waste. Seriously.
Home occupation. I think we should let people, you know, make a living. Just saying.
Judge. Will you give these back to them? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Consideration Number 8, old business, consideration of organizations provide a notification of RSA revisions that apply to planning. You still open on that?
Yes, as I stated before, that we're going to work on making up the same document I did for last year's changes.
Yes.
And just today, I believe I was emailed the method of getting the list of either LSRs before they're actually going to become legislation and the ones that are going through the House now. And I know I may not have emailed, I may have only put it on Facebook, but I put on some social media what municipal and county government committee that would see those RSAs and what's coming through now. Hopefully in the future we could speed that up, so during the LSR process, we will be able to have hearings and go to hearings and stuff, so I'm working on that.
Thank you. Rules of procedure working document. You have that, Judge?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Is that the abutter notification page?
Yes, it is.
I threw that back in the,
Please.
you give it back to Jessica, I put it in that group that I gave you, with the lot version.
You,
Do you want one of these, Gary?
Yeah. Right there.
This has the changes italicized, Judge?
there are some
The additions?
The italicized, the original wording, along with changes to the italicized, which are the underlined ones. This goes all the way back. This is approved, and you'll find documentation of this in the November minutes. We have, it was approved as a working document at that time, with the changes that are in there. So, the next step would be, if the planning board decides either more changes or the possibility of incorporating it into the rules of procedure as is.
This is to help stop, improper notifications from happening, like the last time.
Yes, well, it's not so much that as in making it very clear who is responsible should something happen, something go astray.
Okay.
That's what this document is primarily for.
In other words, the assessor clerk is only verifying addresses, not doing the research as to how many people are actually abutters.
That's correct.
And that would be the person applying?
That's his responsibility, or hers.
Put a sweater on. It's chilly.
Does anyone want to add or subtract anything to this document before we accept it?
Yeah, curiosity would have me ask, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 abutters? I've got 13.
If there were more than that many lines, you just have to add a page.
Okay. Is it the obligation of the other person that's filling this out to make it look all neat, or can they just scribble on there and chicken scrawl? Or should we give them a second page with lines
Well,
on
they
it?
can chicken scroll right here if they want to.
Well, they'll never get 13 people on
No, they
this.
won't, but whatever is on the
I mean,
second
okay.
page is, it's gonna look like down here too.
Okay, I'm just saying, 66, some people have more, don't want to give more space. Okay. Can we do it on the back?
You just submit 2 copies of this filled out. 'Cause
Come on, Gary.
Put 6 more lines on the back.
think that
You want to
all
add?
the, all the
Okay.
applications we've received so far, they've figured it out.
Did they really?
I think so.
Is the gist of what we're looking for is here.
I think that in the modern computer age, probably, if I were filling this out, I wouldn't put any there. I would put them on I'd be, just type it in to the computer and print out a page that had the list on it
And attach it.
and attach it. Even if I only had 3, I'd probably still do that.
I do that all the time.
Because I wouldn't handwrite it on there because nobody'd be able to read it.
And you would put down C, attached to list.
Would you?
Just
I'm-
attached.
Might.
That is genius.
So do you want to do that to this, or you want to just leave it
Well,
as it is?
leave it as is. We've had successful style, yes.
Mr. Chairman, there is some amount of rigmarole that goes on when we update the rules of procedure. And I think that we had another thing that we're going to add to the rules of procedure, this schedule of, what do we call it? The schedule of stuff?
Recurring
Yes.
responsibilities.
Recurring activities of the planning board.
There you go. Can I'm floating the idea of adding that to this working document as like a second page. And just basically, I don't think this is critical that this go into the rules of procedure, next month, or whatever, but I mean, I'm just wondering if we can save some overhead by
Doing them together?
doing them together. Just we've got another thing that we're pending to put into the rules of procedure. Maybe we'll just add it to this existing working document as another page, and hold basically,
But they're gonna go in different spots.
Oh yeah,
It's
absolutely.
okay.
Right. This is going to go to page 8 or wherever that is, and then the other one will go in appendix Q or whatever.
So
it ends up
And you
being.
suggest we just let this float out until we get the other one ready?
That's what I'm suggesting. Because I don't think this is critical that we get it in there right away.
That's fine with me. Does anyone have a problem with that? No.
Good idea.
Judge, we just keep this floating around and keep it in front of us, and we'll put it together with the list of events page that we develop next time.
Okay, so I'll put this on the agenda for next month too.
Yes. Public comments? Public comments.
Sorry, no, I was back on the abutter notification form, I'm sorry.
We just blew by that, but
Okay, I'll do it under public comments. Regarding the form that we just
member
discussed.
comments, you don't have public, you have to wait for member
Oh,
comments.
sorry.
Member comments?
You're on.
Yeah, you get your hand up.
I didn't even say comments in the agenda.
You adjourned the meeting before. Before you
And my comments got in last week because you adjourned it so quick.
Diane,
No, Rob had his hand up.
I got it out there, man.
you were talking.
Yeah.
I know,
She can go
Rob
first.
had
She can
his
go
hand
first.
up.
She can go first. That's
No,
fine.
go ahead, Rob.
Okay, so in the past, when we've had zoning amendments on the ballot, I think, in addition to the public hearings, there's been, I don't know if you guys are going to do a coffee or something like that related to, do we have any contested elections or anything? Should be nothing? Nobody cares about anything?
A lot of people care, but one's enough. There's no contested election.
Okay.
Offices.
Okay. I was just gonna, often in the past, we've had somebody go to some event and be able to explain the zoning amendments. They're gonna be on the ballot. I'm not sure whether there's gonna be a forum for that. I'm not sure that we necessarily need to go out of our way to like host a coffee or something like that for something like that, but I don't know. Maybe nobody knows about or cares about, or maybe the zoning amendments are controversial enough. But
Diane?
Were you gonna follow up on that one? Rob?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Didn't we already have a hearing on all
Yes.
the warrant articles? Even the planning board warrant articles?
If the planning board, hell, yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
wouldn't that be the moment of time that public would have been posted that they could come in and hear and listen and discuss and talk about it?
I'm just saying, in the past, there's been a coffee where the candidates could talk, and I think that we've had somebody who could talk to the zoning stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just raising the issues, just maybe it should be on the schedule of recurring I don't know, anyway.
Maybe the selectmen should start having coffee
Coffee and pizza night.
at their meeting.
Perhaps.
Like the,
Maybe the last Saturday morning of the month. Well, we're here anyway.
like the checklist people, they're always chowing pizza here. Every time I come in to vote. There's food
You come at
flying
lunch
around.
hour. That's what that means.
Oh, so they do it at lunchtime too? I come at dinner time. No. Who's, never mind. Maybe we can have coffee and pizza. To vote.
Coffee and pizza.
Pizza. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Beer.
Can we-
Beer,
can we
beer.
Drink in here while we're actually conducting business, is that?
Can't have
illegal?
liquor on town property, cut it out.
Oh, okay.
Can we
That's
change
right.
that ordinance?
You can't have liquor. So if. it doesn't
Beer
say
and wine
beer,
are
does it say beer?
Alcohol. Sorry,
That's a selectmen's ordinance,
I think so.
so you can change that.
I think so.
And if you don't want to change it, we can change you guys.
That's right.
And there's no smoking,
There's no smoking on town property either?
not inside the building.
Is vaping
It's a
allowed?
state law.
Who?
Vaporizes?
Oh.
Firecrackers, fireworks, are those allowed?
We just legalized fireworks.
More member
Nothing wrong
comment.
with
I'm just asking.
You want to get a member comment, let's move it
I
along.
may be offended by
I'm done.
something.
I got a member comment. When you get done with this,
I was just raising the issue, I wasn't suggesting that I want to host a
I'll
coffee.
buy you a coffee, Rob.
Don't even drink coffee. Buy me a beer.
Diane?
No, I'm done.
Hey, Rick?
I'd like to raise the issue with what's going on with wireless technology, cable and DSL.
Yeah.
Within the next 4 or 5 years, the phone companies, wireless phone companies, will be rolling out a capability that's going to supersede DSL and cable. We have zoning that prohibits them from putting towers into this town to give us broad coverage. We might want to consider how our zoning's documented or written today. It's going to be 10 times faster than the current technology over wireless. So that's why, in my opinion, that's why you don't see any more cable being deployed or DSL being deployed.
So we could put in like a tower zone around the backside of the lake? Or
Someplace. But right now, you can't have
a
it
man-made
down.
island in the middle of Kingswood?
We have a whole
And no,
wireless,
I didn't see it saying that we couldn't.
yeah, we've got
Yeah.
20 pages of zoning that says you can, and how you do it.
That says you can?
Yeah, well, sure, it's permissive zoning.
It says you can?
I get wireless broadband in my house.
That was Ron Murray's baby.
The whole town does it.
Anybody here know Ron Murray? Remember Ron?
No.
I was on a plan where, a long time ago, Ron died not too long ago. Well, quite a while ago, but that was his baby. The tower thing,
Yeah.
he didn't want to see it. He was adamant about it. He drove up here from Massachusetts. He was a retired pilot. And all along the highway, he saw towers. And he did not want to see a tower in Brookfield. Not a whole lot of people supported that. Some did. But it wasn't that big of a hill, that business. They talked about you could disguise them as a pine tree and then it would be okay.
Seen those in New Jersey.
300-foot, you know,
My point
pine
is,
tree.
I don't have a problem with it. And I don't
They
know.
don't look like
They don't look like
pine
pine
trees.
tree.
They're greenish.
Looks like a tower with branches.
A rusty tower, looks like wood.
Yeah.
just be aware the technology's changing and we might keep them out of this town.
Thank you.
How, to say more on that, I'm working with a group of people in Brookfield that we're trying to get some names together to approach Time Warner Cable. And I believe I told the group that there's new technology coming on that may take care of that, and Time Warner, there's a reason why they're not building out their system.
That's right.
They're not
And
one.
that they're not building out their system. Why they're not, and they may be moving into something, the next phase. I don't think they want to, invest in that. But that new, I don't know if it was 5G or
Yeah.
6G.
It's 5G, 100 Mbps. What is it, 100 times faster than what we have today? Whatever. Really, be able to get television over the wireless.
Where will it all end?
How good is the cell coverage here in town. I know that where I'm at, it's awesome.
You get Verizon, you got no problem.
Even Verizon is spotty down. If you get in towards the lake and stuff, in the holes,
Yeah, but the people down the lake don't matter.
that's true.
You need a tower down there.
You should put one in.
I don't put them
Just put a mount on your roof. It'll be awesome.
It's decorated like a pine tree, nobody would know.
The planning board could propose to repeal the tower thing and just saw how well it sat in a public hearing. And this is the reason why they're doing it. We would like to repeal it because of this cutting technology. If 100 people show up aggravated, then maybe.
Does this technology use towers, or is it satellite?
They call it, it's wireless, and they're starting to test it now. AT&T's starting to test it.
So it may,
It won't be satellite.
it may put towers, make towers obsolete.
Well, they're,
Add the new technology to the existing towers.
That's what I think the most likely do.
Right, so that instead of just getting your cell phone signal, you'll be able to get all these additional services.
Vertical real estate, I got a spot for that.
But I mean, I would assume that their range on that is at least as good as what the existing, 3 and 4G.
I can mail you the article, I mailed it.
If you wouldn't mind, I'd appreciate seeing that.
Boy, Bob Bordeaux could put vertical real estate up there, huh?
Yeah.
Everybody.
Because I'm not sure there's a problem if we've got good coverage here in town. I mean, and if there isn't good coverage, then maybe one more tower would cover it.
Maybe. I get very marginal.
All I have to do is go to the ZBA, so towers wherever they want.
Yeah. You probably only need one though, if it's like one area that doesn't get good coverage. And
Get good income from it too.
And, maybe that'd be something for Moose Mountain LLC.
They know where it has to go.
They can put it up high, right?
Right.
I mean, they've got a mountain.
1,800 feet plus tower.
But, Gary makes a good point. Maybe we just want to pull that whole section and remove it. Because I think the whole feeling about wireless is changing. People want the information, they want the bandwidth. They don't want to drop the call or drop whatever when they're going over a hill.
And the town is small enough that the companies are not going to want to put in 50 towers in
Absolutely.
our town, right? I mean, I think that on the north end of town, there's one, it must be in Wakefield, I think.
On top of the hill, behind you.
No, well, there is I see the red light up there, I'm not sure what that is, I'm not sure if it's from there, but
Deer Ridge Road.
near Route 16, south of Stoneham, there's a cell tower, like, quarter mile from Route 16 maybe?
Really?
Route 16 south of Comeau Road, right?
No, I know there's one up on Deer Ridge Road off of Long Ridge Road, which is on the backside where he is.
And
Is that what the red light is up
Yeah.
there? My dog barks at that
Access
thing.
In the access
As
road.
soon as the leaves fall off the trees, my dog sits out of the back of our house and barks at that red light. It's the stupidest dog ever.
That's the direction I shoot. So I know I'm not gonna hit anybody. That's by the phone. That's why it doesn't work.
Take a-
I'm shooting at north.
He's shooting at the antenna. All right.
Any more comments? Sure. Meeting adjourned.